Our book was Voices in the Ocean by Susan Casey.
The central ideas of the story were based around the knowledge and understanding of dolphin conservation. Many dolphins were being held in captivity where they were either tested for scientific purposes or taught tricks for entertainment. Susan Casey teaches us about many of the dolphins' living conditions through real stories of dolphins that were held in captivity that were told by other scientists' encounters.
From these encounters, some scientists began dolphin conservation organizations to help preserve these creatures and keep them in the wild where they belong.
These organizations were mostly successful after doing some research on areas where the dolphins were forced to be. These places included aquariums and science labs that were sometimes in homes.
Scientist John Lilly began experimenting with seeing if dolphins could communicate with humans, and by 1958 he went all in and began his experiments by training dolphins and having them in captivity, which is where most of the captivity started from. And he did this and he performed experiments on the dolphins, seeing if they could change their brain waves in some sort of way by doing a surgery to ultimately see if dolphins were able to communicate with humans.
And just to add on to the general statement, I would say you need evidence to have a nonfiction book. And this book really does that because it has evidence throughout every chapter. And although she does go on to stories that other people have told her, she does still throw in facts about dolphins and the ocean.
Also, this evidence just kind of sums up the whole story because it just shows how one person was taken captive and testing these dolphins, but also representing that millions of other people are doing this and not seeing anything wrong with this. And they weren't also gaining valuable information from this, they were just torturing dolphins. The passage I found significant was on page 248 when Susan Casey is talking to a man named McKeely. It says, "How do you think humans got so cruel?" I asked McKeely. He gazed at the ocean, then back at Turner and me. "We forgot," he said, letting the words linger. "We forgot our responsibility, and we forgot that we are as equal as any living thing within the chain. There's no hierarchy in this. No, we are part of the same family, living things." I think this is very significant because it shows that we as a human race need to grow as a whole and realize that we are not the only things living and breathing on our earth, and we need to learn to appreciate the other organisms that are occupying our planet with us.
I think that the passage also shows us that we have been slacking off on our responsibilities as humans, and it is time to step up and care for all the species that we have been letting down. We think of ourselves as the most important things on earth, but do not realize the amazing attributes the other animals are contributing.
This passage also sums up the majority of the book by showing that humans still have a lot to learn, and that somewhere along the way in our history, people believed that it was okay to torture and kill fascinating creatures, and it has continued to this day. But now, with more knowledge than ever before, we are realizing how awful many of the things people are doing truly are, and many of us are now working to change it.
This book fit perfectly to our curriculum since it speaks of the hydrosphere and the creatures within it. In class, our discussion is focusing around the hydrosphere, and this book does the same thing, explaining the ways dolphins communicate, reproduce, eat, sleep, and survive in the vast ocean. The difference between the book is that it speaks of the capturing and captivity of dolphins in marine parks. It also talks about the slaughters of dolphins when it comes time for the annual Tyhee Dolphin Roundup, where they catch and kill thousands of dolphins and sell the best for money. Although this doesn't relate to what we're learning about in class, it's something that is significant to learning about the hydrosphere. Learning about the impact humans have on these organisms can help us better understand why the seas and oceans are the way they are. Overall, this book related to the curriculum by talking about the hydrosphere, the different ocean levels, the organisms that live there, and how they survive.
I would agree with you on the part on how the captivity didn't exactly relate to the curriculum, but it was still equally as important. We need to know where the dolphins are coming from when they are doing mind-numbing tricks. We need to be able to see them get pulled from their pods in natural habitat. These are the types of things that are important to learn about.
I agree with Mia and how she explained that the book relates to our 9th grade class discussions because the hydrosphere is a main part of the 9th grade unit while also being a big part of Voices in the Ocean by Susan Casey. We don't talk about captivity, I agree, but we have talked about the hydrosphere in the past few weeks or so. And in those past weeks, all three of us have been able to learn about it through the stories told by different people that Susan Casey met along her journey. And we were able to learn more about dolphins and the ocean as well.
Overall, I think the main thing I learned while reading Voices in the Ocean was about the true horrors of dolphin captivity. I realized how many dolphins were taken and killed or forced into cages each year, and that many people don't find anything wrong with it.
Along with that, we learned about all the things that people were trying to do to stop these harmful crimes that were aimed towards dolphins. Susan Casey was one of these people, and there were many changes and laws that were passed to try and save as many dolphins as possible.
I think Susan Casey did a good job at addressing both these points and incorporating both sides of dolphin captivity into her story. We get to see all the torture being put onto dolphins, but also get to see the amazing people in the world who are standing up and speaking out towards all the harsh crimes in effect to create a better future that does not involve animal captivity. I would recommend Voices in the Ocean to anyone who enjoys learning about dolphins in the ocean and captivity. Although I'm not one to read a nonfiction book, I did enjoy the powerful words Susan Casey wrote. Although I do recommend this book to some, I don't recommend it to all. Some parts do get a little strange if you don't truly understand what the author is trying to say. This isn't a book I'd recommend as a science book to read in class, as the book does tend to go off on less important information throughout each chapter. But overall, we enjoyed the book and loved learning about it.
I would agree that this book wouldn't be recommended for a science class because it is more opinionated and there are more stories and it's more of a narrative rather than a factual story. But it was an enjoyable read and I would recommend it to people who are into marine life.
I would also recommend this book because I enjoyed learning about the different perspective of animal captivity and cruelty and learning about all the people that are trying to stop it and are trying to make a better future. In conclusion, I think this book really brought to life the horrors of dolphin captivity and showed us that we need to create a better future where this was not involved as much.
And in the end, I'd say that Susan Casey perfectly summed up what the hydrosphere and how the dolphins live in that hydrosphere.
And this book was significant in the fact that there were many issues that we didn't know about, and it kind of brought to light those problems and how people are trying to solve them.
Thanks for watching.